Okay, welcome back. So we did a couple things off screen, and I'm going to just walk you through those really quick before we continue. With the two basses, the only thing I really changed was I low passed the gargle bass, the extra one that we added, down to about 4K to help it blend in and to get rid of that high end that was sticking out. And for the bass that was already in there, I just EQ'd out the mids a little bit, the same place that I boosted on the other instrument, just to make some more room. And one last thing I did was that I took this bass, and it was already pretty mono, but I put a utility on and I made it 100% mono. And then in this instrument, what I did was I set up this audio effect rack so that I have two chains, one with the width all the way to 200% and one with the width down to 0%. And this lets you split the sides and the mid into two different controllable chains. And what I did was I took the mids down by 5 decibels and I boosted the sides by 2.5. Because this space was already in stereo within massive, so I decided to accentuate that a little bit and then get rid of some volume in the mids to make more room for the bass we already had. So now I'll let you just kind of listen to that. So you might notice that it almost pretty much sounds like one instrument, and that should really be your objective when it comes to layering things. You don't want it to sound like two instruments playing the same thing most of the time. So you should do whatever you can to gel the two instruments together so that they really just sound like one bigger instrument. And if you notice, when I take it away, that's when you really can sense what the instrument's adding. So I'll do that. So you miss a big part of the spectrum there when I take it out. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze this because I am finished with that for now. And then I'll just walk you through a couple more small things I did off camera just to show you what I've updated. Okay, and the other things that I did was, let me just minimize this. I helped this transition out a little bit by taking the crash that we had and I brought it back over here and reversed it so that it kind of sweeps into the crash a little bit and subconsciously lets the listener know that a transition is coming. Another thing I did was I accentuated this little drum fill here with the phase bass. As you can see, the pattern that is playing with these cymbals right here on this drum break, I accentuated with these little guys here. As you can see, they're different from the last few. So it just kind of makes that fill a little bit more noticeable. If you listen, you might be able to pick that out. So just a little thing there. And another last thing that I did was I took the white noise that we have and I did sort of the same thing that we did with the crash with the reverse. And if you just listen to the high end, you'll notice that it kind of sweeps up and then down, and it's a lot smoother than it was before. And also, this white noise right here wasn't even there, so I added that to help the crash out, and that definitely helps the transition. So that was a few things that I did. And now what I want to do is I want to take these plucks and I want to try and layer them with a string instrument. So I'm going to open an instance of Contact and grab one of the strings I have from there. And what I want to basically do is automate the volume so that at certain parts it comes in and makes this part thicker. So we'll see if that helps maybe the beginning and this part here as well. It could help the listener feel more of a build when it gets closer to the drop. So let's go ahead and grab contact. Let's make a new MIDI channel first. Drag that in. And contact is sometimes a little unstable, so once this pops up, I'm going to go ahead and save, just in case we get a crash. Saving. All right. So let's grab something from session strings. Viola, that sounds pretty good. So I'm just going to take the same pattern. I'm going to drag it down into contact. Okay. Now let's just take a listen. Oh, let me do that. Okay. Okay, we're getting a little bit of CPU issues there. All right, so since the other instrument is very plucky, we want to sort of accentuate that feeling. So we're going to hop over into the key switch tab. We're going to change the articulation from legato to pizzicato, which is when the viola player kind of plucks the strings instead of playing them with a bow. It's a little loud. Okay. Let's go ahead and EQ out that low end because we definitely don't want that in there, muddying things up. All right. Now we have other controls as well, such as an equalizer in here, and we have the built-in reverb. Now this might be something we want to automate. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that control. Okay. And we may want to automate this frequency as well in the beginning. But before we do that, let's go ahead and put a utility in here and automate the volume. So we don't want this to start off hearing these strings at all. Okay, they definitely mesh together well. So let's automate the reverb to come up as well. And I'm going to go ahead and shelve this in the high end because I can already tell it's going to be sticking out a little too much. Okay, let's hear how this sounds in the mix, and hopefully we don't get any CPU issues. All right, so I think that we really want this to be low. That's not what I want. We really want this to be low in volume so that you don't easily hear it. We want this to be the main instrument, the one we already have. And then when it drops in, uh-oh, I think we have an issue. Nope, never mind. It just loops weird. Thought there was an issue there. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. I don't know why it's like that. Okay, and then it can maybe jump up in volume a little bit once it drops in. But I also want to high pass it more because the bass comes in and we want the bass to have room. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, it sits in there nicely, but let's grab this phaser and let's put that on here too. So they both have a similar effect happening. Okay. And then here, we're going to drop it back down. But we're also going to drop down the volume. And then we're going to do a similar automation right here, bringing the automation up until it drops. Whoops. Okay. Now, one of the problems that some producers run into, or most producers run into, and it's not something they necessarily notice, is that when you try to beef up your build-up, the thicker you make your build-up, by contrast, the thinner your drop is going to sound unless you beef it up similarly. So as we layer things in here, we're going to have to make sure we have things hitting on the very first beat of this within the same frequency range so that certain frequencies don't drop out when the drop comes in. Because then we'll lose a sense of power from the drop kicking in, and we don't want that. But this is sounding okay so far. I think I'm going to fine-tune it a little bit off camera, and I'm also going to try and address some of these CPU issues, because when I'm recording, I think it's using like an extra 20% CPU just to run the song. And so I'm going to have to optimize this project. But next time, I think what we'll do is we'll focus more on this build-up, and we'll get more transitioning things happening here. Maybe a little bit more percussion elements, but we'll have to feel it out as we go. So I'll see you on the next episode.